Everybody got announced. Hey, nigga, listen. You gotta hear this. Look, I might have lost today, but I'm undefeated in court.
Last month, Freddie Gibbs released his latest album, Soul Sold Separately, so I figured it was the perfect time to go back and rank every album and mixtape that he's ever released. And he recently said that he might be done making albums for a while, so let's take a look back on his catalog as it stands. 18 years of mixtapes, EPs, and full-length albums. Freddie's discography is super interesting, because I feel like people only ever mention the same 5 or 6 projects by him, without realizing that he has an incredibly deep catalog of 25 more mixtapes that go undiscussed. I won't be covering the labels trying to kill me because that's a compilation, the Pronto EP, or any of the EPs that are essentially just singles, because they're kinda hard to judge against full-length projects. So drop your rankings down below. I'm really curious to see what the consensus will be on a lot of these. And before I get started, if you enjoy the content and want to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that is greatly appreciated. And now let's get right into it. In last place, at number 30, Gangsta Island 2. Now there's an asterisk with the bottom few here, because some of the tracks for each are missing online. I scoured the internet trying to track down these missing songs, but some just ended up being incomplete. And it's a shame, because the music that is here is actually pretty great. This one is probably the most incomplete of the bunch, so it's hard for me to get a good read on the record overall, other than being just a group of solid tracks. The opening track, Mike Vick, is uber hard, and blends the Dirty South sound with a light soul sample. And by 2007, Freddie was already coming into his own as a lyricist. Learn to Duck has Freddie absolutely ripping up a DJ Premier beat. It really makes me wish we've gotten more collaborations from them over the years. But this track was utilized better on another Freddie tape, Straight Slammin', that I'll get into later. Aside from those two standouts, there's still a solid amount of good tracks, and maybe if the rest of the tape was available, it would be higher. But as it stands today, I just can't put this above his other projects. At number 29, Big Business Volume 1. This is another one with a good amount of tracks missing, unfortunately, but I do feel like what is here is a better showcase of this early era of Freddie than on number 30. Set It Off starts off the project with a simple but effective intro that sounds like Freddie just freestyling in the cafeteria while his friends slap the table to make the beat. I Run GI is like a statement, proving that he's the #1 rapper out of Gary, Indiana. Spittin' Vicious uses the Mike Jones Still Trippin' beat, which would be really cool, if only Lupe Fiasco didn't already make that beat completely his own on the incredible track Switch. Earlier this year when Freddie released his singles for SSS, I saw a lot of people complaining online that he was selling out and going for a more trap sound, but those people definitely haven't done their homework, because Big Business is from all the way back in 2005, and this thing is pretty much all trap, and Freddie really is great on this type of production. He provides a lyrical clarity to these hard and party-oriented beats, even if his lyricism and delivery isn't nearly as refined as it will be later on. This is a nice stepping stone for what's to come, but he certainly comes a long way after this. At number 28, we have Big Business Volume 2. In the year between the last one in 2005 and this in 2006, Freddie's rapping ability improved tremendously. Take track 2 for instance. Freddie raps over the beat to 3-6 Mafia's Stay Fly, and he completely makes that song his own, using a new double-time flow that sounds more inspired by Twista than his early trap inspirations like T.I. and 3-6. He even raps over Shook Ones on the track 219, which is almost an impossible beat to honor after Mobb Deep's classic, but he really does well on it. And while I was able to find most of this project, this is another one that has some tracks that are missing, which is why it falls so low. Overall, a step up from his other incomplete early works, but still a long way to go in his career. At number 27, we have Gangsta Island Volume 1. This is the best of the projects that are incomplete, so I promise, everything from here on out will be a full project. Here Freddie has not only improved as a lyricist, but as a songwriter. The opening track Crazy sounds like something that Freddie could release today, and nobody would blink an eye. He starts toying with singing hooks and playing with his vocal cadences. It's pretty much a step up as an artist in every way. He reuses that Shook Ones track on 219 Anthem, and it simply sounds better surrounded by better songs. My Last Hour is one of the first truly great performances by Freddie lyrically, rapping a descriptive story about his first time taking a life. And I'm a G ends it off with a Pharrell clip-sounding track, showing that he's gonna level up big time when he starts working with higher profile producers. At number 26, we're going way back to 2004 with Freddie's first mixtape ever called Full Metal Jacket Volume 1. In the early days of Freddie's career, his mixtapes mostly comprised of him rapping over some of hip-hop's most iconic beats. On this tape, he raps over the Dipset anthem, Alicia Keys' You Don't Know My Name, Ludacris's Stand Up, Tupac and Biggie's Dying to Live, as well as many more, and some original tracks as well. And while it's cool hearing Freddie's take on these classics, at this point in his career, he didn't really have his own style perfected, so it's almost like why listen to the remake when the original is still superior. A majority of this album still has that early trap, almost crunk-inspired sound that in all honesty I'm just not really too big a fan of. So if you like that era of hip-hop, then you may have this one higher. But for me, this is a very nice starting point to Freddie's career, but it's something that he's surpassed in pretty much every way later on. At number 25, we have that mixtape sequel, Full Metal Jacket Volume 2. This project has some of the same issues with the first one, with Freddie making his own version of classic tracks like Noqh If You Buck, Fabulous's Breathe, and more. But this project is a lot more ambitious than the first, with interviews, freestyles, and skits throughout that aren't always effective, but still are some of the first seeds of Freddie's artistic personality showing through. The track Gibbs is super dope. It quiets down the mostly hard trap album to put his lyricism on display, with Freddie setting out to prove that he's one of the best around. Now lyrically, he's far from his prime here, but it's still cool to see him emphasize both his harder trap side, as well as his more lyric-oriented side that he would go on to perfect later on. The project ends with Gibbs rapping over the Michael Jackson sampled Never Can Say Goodbye, and shows that versatility coming only 4 tracks after his version of Noqh If You Buck. This project shows a lot of potential, but really doesn't compare to his best projects that he would drop a decade later. At number 24, This Is My Hustle. Another early Freddie joint. This is his Ode to the Hustle from 2005. With these early mixtapes, you can hear Freddie slowly improving with each outing, refining his delivery, broadening his lyrical arsenal, and overall just coming into his own as an artist. However, this one still does fall to some of the same trappings as his Full Metal Jacket series. Of course, he raps over Cassidy's I'm a Hustler, but just like I was saying before, he hasn't yet mastered how to make the tracks his own, and not just a lesser remake. Steel City Stick Up Kids is really dope, and doesn't really resemble the Freddie that we know now, but his ability to ride a beat is timeless, and is guaranteed to keep heads knocking 17 years later. Get Blowed is Freddie's ode to smoking weed, and it's one of the few moments on these early projects that really showcases his larger-than-life personality. You can hear him getting more comfortable on the mic on this project, and it sets him up to only improve in the future. And this one ends with the same track as the last one with Never Can Say Goodbye, but I think it just fits better here and wraps up this solid project. At number 23, You Only Live Twice. Alright, we have made it to our first of the modern Freddie Gibbs releases, and I know what you're thinking, this is pretty low for this project. But at only 8 tracks, there's just not as many great songs here as there are on the others. The opening track, 20 Karat Jesus, is one of the best here, with Freddie weaving these flows in and out of the track in an onslaught of lyricism. It really is remarkable hearing this after the mixtapes from early in his career. It sounds like a completely different artist. Amnesia is pretty fun lyrically, with Freddie rapping about having amnesia when the cops talk to him or when his girl checks his phone, but instrumentally, the track never really wowed me. The other standout here to me is Andrea, but besides that, this is a dope project, but it doesn't really offer anything that you can't find on a better Freddie project. At number 22, Big Business, Volume 3. The best of the Big Business series, this one has Freddie really embracing the grittiness of his sound, with some true Dirty South bangers. Bobblehead shows off his ability to blend his syncopated delivery with his ability to make a track with mass appeal. At this point, Freddie has already become a master of flow. He can go fast or slow, and he can switch between the two in the same verse. Now technically this isn't even a Freddie solo album. Some of the songs are group efforts, and some are solo joints from his crew at the time. But you know what? I don't hold that against the project. In fact, I think it actually provides a nice variety to the tape. And artists like Insanity and Sandy G have some of my favorite tracks here. But overall, it's Freddie's show, and hearing him alongside his peers really proves why he's special, and ended up having such a great career. At number 21, ESGN. Freddie Gibbs' first official studio album, this is an interesting project because it sort of feels like the bridge between the first and second parts of his career. The first half of the album feels way too trapped in 2013, but it really picks up in the back half, really starting with The Color Purple, continuing to the last song. He really just goes on a run of greatness at the end here. On The Color Purple, he's singing like a 90s R&B singer, and it really adds Freddie's famous levity to this project, and feels like the Freddie we all love now. Dope in My Styrofoam is a smooth jam that lets him ride. His flow and delivery are so dynamic when the production just lets him sit back and work his magic. When you take all 19 tracks into consideration, even though I'm not in love with half of it, I think this is a pretty great showing of all that he has to offer, showing his versatility while still feeling like himself. At number 20, we have Live from Gary, Indiana 2. Released in April 2009, this mixtape has a grand feel to it. He's always repped his hometown of Gary, Indiana, but on this project he's on a mission to put his city on the map. The opening block music has this bombastic horn sample. In fact, the production on the whole thing is like fanfare. It's got horns and knocking drums. It's like a parade mixed with a block party, and it definitely passes the car speaker test. He slows it down on D's hose and Something to Smoke To, which adds some variety while still feeling cohesive. The tape features a young Wiz Khalifa, which is cool to hear. The lyrics here are nothing groundbreaking, mostly filled with braggadocio and Freddie's tales of conquest and crime. He raps on the classic 93 to Infinity beat on How We Do, and at this point he's really able to put his own stamp on the track, which of course you love to hear. At number 19, we have Freddie. Another modern Freddie release. I really like this project, but it just doesn't do any single thing better than his other projects from this era. This project is exclusively produced by Kenny Beats, which I think works in some ways and doesn't in others. I think the two styles work extremely well together. Kenny's bass-heavy trap production is banging, and Freddie finds the pocket so effortlessly, giving his own spin on the modern trap sound. But even though it's only 10 songs long, I don't think the duo had enough to really fill out a whole project. I think they could have benefited from some variety in the production, maybe even outsourcing to a few different producers. I do love the FLFM interlude, where Freddie shows off his comedically horrible singing chops, doing his best impression of an 80s R&B singer. And even though this may not be a track that I go back and listen to often, it's just the type of variance that this album could have used more of mixed in. At number 18, Still Slammin' 3. This is the most well-balanced project that we've talked about so far. I'm a huge fan of the Straight Slammin' series, and we'll go on to the rest later, but Volume 3 is a great addition. The opening track, Illegal, has Freddie flowing fast and a hook that blends his ability to sing and rap at the same time. There's a lot of features in this project, but they're all top-tier talent, including Fonte, Planet Asia, Action Bronson, Jeezy, Big Crit, and more. There's a lot of variety in this project, but it all blends very well. The hard trap doesn't feel out of place next to the almost R&B track Chill, and that all fits perfectly next to the soul-sampled On the Corner and Labor Day. We're at number 18 here, and I'd consider this a great project already, which just goes to show you how stacked his discography is. At number 17, we have The Miseducation of Freddie Gibbs. While it may be hard to live up to its classic namesake from Lauryn Hill, this project definitely backs up its ambitious title as one of Freddie's best projects from the aughts. He's had a lot of songs dedicated to Gary over the years, but the opening GI Pride is possibly his best. It sounds triumphant, like he's planting his flag and putting his city on the map. The flow that he used on What It Be is unlike anything he'd use today. It's an attempt at a down-the-middle club song, I think, but it really works well. His ability to just keep flowing makes his goes at more accessible tracks really one of a kind and fun. And then you got tracks like From the G, that's a freestyle over an Isley Brothers sample and a breakbeat. This era of his career, once he perfected his mixtapes and before he got into album mode, was such a special time because he was throwing a lot at the audience to see what stuck, and you ended up getting some cool, unique tracks. Queen, For the Streets, Stray with Devin the Dude, and Flamboyant over the classic Big L beat are all standouts here that honestly would catch my ear on any Freddie Gibbs project. At number 16, The Tonight Show with DJ Fresh. I feel like it's a bit of a hot take having this one above some of the ones that we've already covered, but I just love DJ Fresh's production. I feel like his beats have a distinctness that's not found in any other Freddie project. I don't even think any of these songs individually would stand out on different Gibbs projects, but together it just works. On Keep It Gangster, DJ Fresh blends in sax samples and synths, giving Freddie the go-ahead to just rip it. It finally walks that line that I think Freddie is best at, between hard gangster rap and a smooth abstract spitter. The track G Like That is essentially a dance track, sounding like a dance remix that wouldn't show up anywhere else in his discography. The project even has an E40 track. Overall, after listening to 30 Freddie Gibbs projects in a few weeks span, this one really stands out just for having a different energy, and I respect that, even if it isn't filled with the sheer amount of incredible beats and bars that some of these others do. At number 15, Fuckin' With Fred. This is a little known and talked about Fred project, but I think it's one of the best of his mixtape era. This album is filled with loud, bodacious bangers. It was released in 2011, right around the time that he was fully coming into his own as one of the premier trap lyricists around. In the lead up to his album Soul Sold Separately, I saw a lot of people disappointed with the trap sound of the singles, but to me I wasn't mad at him returning to trap, but it was more just that those trap songs were nowhere near as exciting and lively as his earlier work on projects like this. He finds the pocket early on this, and sets up shop and lives there. His flow on tracks like Stripes, Faux Show, and Clouds of Endo are airtight. This project has similar DNA to ESGN. There's a lot of similar sounds and subject matter used, but I just feel like this one was executed way better. Any project with 20 songs and not a single bad track is something special. The tape really does a good job of mixing hard bass bumping songs and mixing them in with some smooth joints as well. The only thing holding this back is that there's not really any standout tracks that I would consider tip-top tier Freddie, simply just a group of some very good songs. At number 14, Still Slammin' 2. Back to 2011 we go with one of the liveliest projects here. The subject matter of the lyrics aren't pushing any boundaries, but he's mastered his style on the mic, and the title isn't lying. These tracks are straight slammin'. There is some crossover of tracks with some of his other mixtapes, but they're all best utilized here, because there's so much dopeness around it. He branches out a little on the beats. The opening one, Use a Hoe, and Contact have some G-Funk inspiration, and that's just the start. VCR is clearly the best song here. It sounds like an indie pop song, with this beautiful hook and drums pulled together by a couple cowbells, and Freddie rips it, proving the man can spit over anything. It's even got a rare love song, in Way Too Fast, so his pen is showing some versatility that we'll go on to see much more of later on. At number 13, Live from Gary, Indiana 1. From way back in 2007, this is the best of the early Freddie Gibbs projects. It's the last moments before he really refined his voice, but still had the hunger of an artist trying to break through. On The Girls Love It, he flips East Flatbush Project's Tried by 12, which is one of the coolest beats of all time, so it's awesome hearing Freddie's take on it. There's a hardness to these songs that gets lost on some other albums when he shows other sides of his artistry, but hearing a whole project like this is cool to hear. He links up with The Alchemist on Scary Gary, and it's super cool hearing these two at the beginning of their legendary partnership. It's not as great as their later collabs, but it's still dope to hear. Doin' Dumb Shit is my favorite track on the project. It's extremely funky, with a Parliament Funkadelic sample, and it's a cool throwback sound that you rarely hear Freddie go with. This project is an ode to Gary, Indiana, but the production is very boom bap-ish, and sounds inspired by DJ Premier specifically. So this one was one of the first major steps that he took into working with different types of producers, and it feels like the start of the path that ended up linking him with producers like Al and Madlib. At number 12, we have his latest album, Soul Sold Separately. I feel like people may be mad that I have this so low, but I think 12 is accurate. It's got a handful of great tracks and shows off everything that Freddie does well, but as a whole, I do think it's missing a little something. There are some truly amazing songs here, but a lot of it just feels sort of like Freddie Gibbs light. But like I said, there is still some greatness on here. The opening track, Couldn't Be Done, is possibly the best opener of his career, and definitely the best opening track of the year. It's got this grand feel, and feels like an announcement that Freddie means business. The album is sequenced interesting because I feel like it's bookended, because the best two tracks are the opener and the closer, CIA. And then the bonus track, Decoded, is probably my favorite track on the whole thing, so I don't know why he would tack that track onto the end when it's so amazing. I know a lot of people weren't feeling his poppier, radio-friendly songs like Pain and Strife and Too Much featuring Moneybagg Yo, but I don't mind that he dove in and went for a different style. It's the songs in between that don't really work for me. The ones like Space Rabbit or Dark Hearted that don't really play into his strong suits while taking steps into a modern radio trap style without going all in. A lot of this album felt like he had one foot in the bar-heavy aggressive style and one foot in trying to make a radio record, and I just wish he picked one. I really wanted to love this project, and it's extremely solid. But Fred's at the point in his career when I really wanted to step up and snatch the crown as one of the dopest MCs in the world. But instead we got a solid project, and there's just not much more to it than that. Number 11, Midwest Gangsta Box Frame Cadillac Music. Traveling back to his mixtape days, this feels like it could have been his debut official album. It just feels way more professional and put together than his other tapes from this era. It opens up with Midwest Malcolm, which is so nice, showing off his ability to string words together like a poet over this smoky beat. At the risk of blasphemy here, I want to say that his mic presence is reminiscent of a prime Tupac on his smoother songs here. He enlists Devin the Dude to add his expertise to Something You Should Know, and Freddie embodies the dude's delivery and free-flowing style in a way that works so well. For a lot of these entries, I mention how it blends styles and vibes, but this one just surpasses that. It's not a mix of bangers and ballads, it's just 17 songs that all fit together and lie somewhere between those two lines. There's a couple tracks like Bust Down and I'm the Man that sound way too 2009, but for the most part, this is one of the first truly great albums that he released, and really set him up to run the following decade. At number 10, Lord Giveth, Lord Taketh Away. Freddie's collab EP with Static Selecta was hard to rate here because it truly is amazing, but at only 18 minutes, it was just hard to compare with these other full-length releases. But either way, this EP is quality. The two have instant chemistry, and pave the way for Freddie's future rapper-producer collaboration albums. This was recorded entirely in 24 hours, which is crazy because it's one of the most lyrically dense projects that we've covered so far. Sonically, it's so far removed from the other projects he was making at the time. He teams up with Daz Dillinger for Rap Money, which sounds like an album cut from the golden age of Gangstar, with Static lining up a soulful hook and scratching his way to a Primo impression. My only issue with this is that it's just 7 songs, really 6 without counting the intro, and there's 8 features, so I could have used more Freddie on this Freddie project. At number 9, A Cold Day in Hell. As one of his few mixtapes that are on streaming, this tape is pretty well known, but I still think it deserves more praise. It starts with Barely Made It, which is a beautiful intro featuring BJ the Chicago Kid, where Freddie contemplates his life up to that point, and then immediately goes to Rob Mia, which is one of the hardest songs of his career. He spits fast like an Uzi on this anthem for thievery. It could make the Pope want to go out and rob someone after listening to it. Band is what I love most from Freddie. The beat is laid back and mellow, but his delivery is hard-hitting and almost angry. When he toes this line is when he's at his best to me. Like some of his other projects from this era, the production sounds very stuck in its day, but on this project, I feel like Freddie takes this production and makes it his own. Rather than impersonating the top artists of the era, he's carving his own path and refining his personal style. Menace to Society could have been played at a party in 2012, 2022, or 1982. He taps into something that's pretty timeless, and doesn't feel dated even when it probably should. And Heaven Can Wait is his best lyrical performance here, rapping about what he'd do if he had 24 hours to live, giving this album the full range of Freddie's talents and arsenal. At number 8, Babyface Killa. Another great trap outing from Freddie. This is the kind of album that you can just throw on in a car and vibe all the way home. The beats are spacey but bang, and the bars are never ending. There are hooks, but this is right before he leveled up his songwriting, so it's pretty much just non-stop bars the whole time, which I love. Still Livin' sounds like a classic Maybach music joint, and Freddie rocks it. Walk In with the M.O. is a chill track with a love story verse and a Freddie sung hook, and Bout It is one of the best Freddie Gibbs songs ever. Definitely his best of this kind of accessible sound. If this song got a remix by Drake at the time, it no doubt would have propelled Freddie into another stratosphere. It would have fit right at home on the soundtrack to NBA 2K12 or something. And then he links up with Jadakiss and J-Rock to show that his pen still holds up. And then Breaking Bad is the ultimate vibe when you're driving down the highway with your windows down. Overall, this project may be a little dated, but something about it just works. At number 7, we have his collaboration with The Alchemist and Currency, Fetty. Similar to The Lord Giveth, the only real negative about this is that there's just not enough Freddie on it. It's 23 minutes, and he's splitting time with Currency, so it just leaves me wishing it was longer. Neither MC really has enough time to totally kill this record, even though each blends perfectly into The Alchemist cinematic soundscapes. This project feels like a movie, with Al's melancholic flips and the MCs repping their mafioso performances. The one word to use to describe this project is cool. This thing just sounds cool, and sometimes that's all you need. This is really the only project where Freddie shares the spotlight with another MC 50-50, and it works surprisingly well. The two styles are enough similar to feel like they've been working together for years, while each bringing their very own distinct styles every time. This project is great all the way through. My only problem is just that it's not as good as the full-length projects that Al has with each MC on their own. At number 6, Still Slammin' 1. I'm sure people are going to think this is way too high, but I don't really care. This tape is remarkable. It takes all the best that Mixtape Freddie has to offer and puts it together. The production mostly has a more traditional, throwback sound, which is right up my alley, and lyrically he's in his bag, rapping about his life of crime and his place in the rap game. He contemplates his sins on Highway to Hell, and straight slams the G-Funk inspired AIM. He raps over DJ Honda's Travelin' Man on This Is Freddie, and Dr. Dre's Explosive on Something New. I know I'm a hypocrite when talking about him rapping over other people's beats, but I just love these beats so much that I don't really mind. And there's a song on here featuring Blue and Homeboy Sandman, so you know that's gonna be one of my personal favorites. There's really not much specifically that I even have to say about this project, other than that it's just an awesome collection of songs. I assume this is one that a lot of people haven't heard, and it's all up on YouTube, so go check it out. At number 5, Shadow of a Doubt. This is Freddie's darkest project to date, and the point where he masters his delivery on modern trap beats. This was the project released right after Pinata, which is crazy because the two couldn't sound more different. Pinata with its soulful loop-heavy production, and this with its more synthetic and cloudy feeling to it. This is Freddie's full-length entry into the more melodic side of modern rap, sliding from rap verses into singing without missing a beat. Freddie's talent as a song creator has improved so much over the years. Even his singing voice is the glue to making some of these songs great, with Careless, Fucking Up the Count, and Basketball Wives. And that doesn't mean that he's not ready to tear it up lyrically either. He goes toe-to-toe with Black Thought on Extradite, and then 4 songs later he teams up with E40 and Gucci Mane for a trap special that feels right out of the bay. This is what I wish Soul Sold Separately ended up being. This project is unapologetic in its vision, and ends up being one of the best projects of his career. At number 4, Alfredo. Straight up, this project is incredible. You have The Alchemist at the top of his game, looping up some of the best beats so far in the 2020s, and then Freddie at the top of his craft, where his flow and lyricism meet to give us one of my favorite performances by an MC of this decade. 1985 has this powerful guitar sample, and Freddie at his most quotable, making for one of the best intros in either of their careers. He uses a few different flows on God Is Perfect, and they're all brilliant. This has possibly my favorite feature list in his career too. He gets some of the best rappers around, like Benny the Butcher, Conway the Machine, Tyler the Creator, and Rick Ross, and brings out the best in them, having them meet Freddie on his terms without taking the songs away from him. Look at Me, Something to Rap About, Scotty Beam, Babies and Fools. It was a moment when these songs were the soundtrack to life. At this point, Freddie and Al had been working together on and off for a decade, and you can tell. These beats feel like they were built just for Freddie. They both have so many different styles, but together their music is just beautiful. The only reason, and I mean the only reason why this isn't higher, is just because it's shorter than these next 3. At number 3, we have Straight Killa, No Filla. I'm talking about the mixtape version and not the EP, and let me tell you, this is by far the best mixtape of his career. Similar to his other best tapes, this is a group of great songs, but this one feels much more cohesive and ambitious than his other mixtapes. It's almost an hour and 20 minutes, but it's killer all the way through. Dollars for Dope starts it off with an epic horn-laced intro. This was way back in 2010, but his delivery is so confident, and his flow is so deep in the pocket that he feels like a part of the beat. And then on national anthem Fuck the World, he slows it down to focus on his lyrics and raps about his views on the world. His flow is masterful on this track, speeding it up halfway through each verse in one of my favorite rhyme patterns that he's ever used. He raps over Masta Ace's Born to Roll, and you know how much I love Ace, so I love hearing Freddie pay homage to the legend. Songs like Rep to the Fullest, In My Hood, and Slammin' are some of the hardest that he has to offer, and Live by the Game is an anthem of hustling that feels like it could have been used by Prime Hove. It slows down for Serve or Get Served, PSA, and Personal OG, really showing his confidence in his newly minted versatility that would go on to define his career for the next decade. He flips Milk Bone's Keep It Real, and it ends up being one of the best tracks on the album, rapping about his trials and tribulations of life in the ghetto. And then he ends the album off with Gibbs doing his best Rick James impression on Slangin' Rocks, in a moment that solidifies so much I love about this project. He's singing his heart out, and he couldn't be more off-key, but he doesn't care. He's just having fun, and the music is so enjoyable. At number 2, Bandana. It's pretty much a toss-up between the two Mad Gibbs albums, because they're both practically perfect, but this one's number 2. Freddie teams up with quite possibly the greatest hip-hop producer of all time for a true modern classic. Madlib famously produced this whole project on an iPad. The production is so varied and full, it's incredible, and Freddie does not put these beats to waste. He knows exactly what to do on top of this greatness. Freestyle Shit is one of my favorite rap songs of the past 5 years, and that's just the start. Madlib taps into Freddie's trap tendencies on tracks like Half Main, Half Cocaine, and Situations, and it's the complete opposite of the trap music on his early projects. This is dripping with Freddie's swagger and originality. Crime Pays is ultra smooth, and has probably my favorite Freddie performance on here. The features in this project are Killer Mike, Pusha T, Anderson .Paak, Yasin Bey, and Black Thought, which is pound for pound probably the most talented group of artists he's worked with. Practice is one of his greatest storytelling tracks, and one of the most personal songs of his career, rapping about a past relationship and trying to hold on to love while dealing with infidelity, all over this beautifully elegant Donny Hathaway sample. This album has everything you could possibly want from a Freddie Gibbs album, and it shows every side of his artistry at the highest quality. At number 1, Pinata. Just like Bandana, this is one of the best albums of the decade, except this one is more consistent and has so many iconic songs that it can't be beat. Madlib's production stays completely within its soulful range, but this isn't simply just some R&B loops. Lib is experimenting more than most so-called experimental rap artists, chopping it up like a mad scientist. High was the first song that got me into this album back in the day. Back when I made mix CDs for my car, this was track 1, and got me hyped every day before school. The beat is the essence of cool, and Freddie is an animal, leading into an old era Danny Brown, to drop an unhinged verse, as expected. Harold is an all-time classic. It's one of those songs where Freddie's so locked in that he becomes one with the beat. Shitsville is overflowing with attitude, with 2 of the best verses on the album. And then Thuggin' is a first ballot Freddie Hall of Famer. The way he glides over this ringing beat is so nice. The second half of the album has one of the chillest runs in rap history, with Robes, Lakers, and leading into Knicks, which is probably the best thing to happen to the Knicks since Patrick Ewing retired. This is the signature Freddie Gibbs project, teaming up with one of the best to ever do it to give us one of the best rap albums of all time. The duo are supposed to come out with a 3rd album in their trilogy, called Montana, but recently Freddie said that might not even happen, so who knows. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. This was by far my longest video ever to this point, so if you got all the way through this, thank you so much. Like I said before, drop your rankings down in the comments. If there's any other artists you would like to see me do a discography ranking of, drop those down there as well. If you want to talk music at all, feel free to hit me up on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, I got a lot more headed your way. I got a really packed schedule to end out the year, so I'm very excited for that. Thanks for watching.